Good morning, Mr. Kariuki.
Good morning.
Mr. Kariuki, tell us about yourself.
I think to sum it up, I would say I am a confident and committed corporate and commercial professional. Confident because the way I live my life, the way I handle my instructions, the way I handle the negotiations, it has been very apparent that I have to be confident to get what my clients need. And in terms of my life, I also try to say what I need to say with a lot of confidence. I think that takes the communication across better. In terms of commitment, I'm very committed to the things I do. I pick my struggles very selectively. In my practice, I try my best to do as much as I can to finish what I need to finish within the expected timelines. And in my life, I try to keep a few friends who I make sure I'm involved in most, if not all, of their engagements where I'm called upon.
That's really good to know. Law is a very wide field. What area do you practice? What do you exactly do in this profession?
I would say primarily I'm in mergers and acquisitions, but I have found myself called into other transactions in the corporate and commercial sphere. I've done a few bits in energy, advisory, regulatory, compliance. I've done a few compliance matrices for listed companies and other entities in the market. But I would say primarily I do mergers and acquisitions.
Okay, so to sum it up, you're a corporate lawyer.
Yes, put it as a corporate and commercial lawyer.
Interesting. Mr. Kariuki, something that was very intriguing was that you won the Nairobi Legal Awards as the Young Lawyer of the Year 2019. Please tell us what your experience was from the nomination process to you being the Young Lawyer of the Year.
Thank you very much. I still haven't found out who nominated me, but I can talk about the process. So we had 2 rounds of interviews, and I think what came out very openly is that they were not just looking for a person who has done very well in their career. They were also looking at your leadership skills in your areas of practice. So if I was to discuss some of the things that came out very profoundly, is that my writings and articles in the Business Daily, my contribution to the profession through my research and publications was very fundamental in me getting this award. So some of the things we discussed were, of course, your professional history, your leadership skills, how you have mentored young people who are joining the profession, and above all, the prospects of where you're going and what you have put in place as your foundation to becoming the next level lawyer.
Okay. What has changed since you actually won the Young Lawyer of the Year? What has changed?
Other than being a celebrity, I would say I have found myself being more involved in the Law Society of Kenya's events, and I would like to commend the Nairobi branch for their notable activity, or their notable, or how would I put it? They have done a lot to bring the Nairobi lawyers together. So we see events all the time, sports, hangouts, and I found myself, since I got the award, to now look at how I can plug into the Nairobi Society's activities, which are not fun only. I think there are other things that Nairobi branch does, like contribution to proposed laws, discussions like the upcoming one on BBI. So I found myself more involved in the legal professional work.
Thank you for commending the Nairobi branch for ensuring your welfare is maintained or is taken care of as an advocate. Mr. Kariuki, apart from being in the office, the other social activities that you normally engage in, for example, you come to events which are rather mostly, some of them are informal. What is your work-life balance? How does it look like? What is, yeah.
I think the concept of work-life balance, especially for young lawyers and those in my profession or those in my line of work, is some sort of a fallacy is a very strong word, but I would use it in this case. I like to think of it as a work-life harmony, as Jeff Bezos calls it. And I think it's possible that you would have a lot of time with your family and just have a few hours working, and yet your family would not get the value of being with them. I like to think of it as a place where you integrate both work and life, because they're not interchangeable. So I think I am more comfortable taking a few hours of my holiday to respond to a client, because I'll have more peace to interact informally with the people who I am with. And at the same time, if I'm in the office and I need to take care of urgent personal business, I should find a way of working in an environment where that is allowed. So work-life balance, probably it's not something I yearn for or look forward to, because I don't understand it as it is. Harmony, that I can, because if I am at a restaurant and an email comes in and I can respond immediately, then that should be done. And the nature of our commercial transactions is that both parties will want the transaction completed as early as possible. So there's always the pressure to complete in time. And still, being a young lawyer, you should yearn to find yourself into as many transactions as you can. So you can't say, I need to go home, so I won't do A, B, C, and D, because A, B, C, and D contributes to your growth. And perhaps to my relief, I have seen as people age, then you find your harmony more towards social things and social events, because then your responsibilities morph to responsibilities that allow you to be more social. For instance, you will be hanging out with your clients, you'll be playing golf, you'll be seated in informal discussions while maintaining relationships. So for a young lawyer, find your harmony. As you age, then maybe a discussion can be had as to which side you incline to.
Finding your harmony as you age, really work-life harmony is. Mr. Kariuki, we also, being in your third year of practice, you've achieved, there are some things that you've achieved. Can you mention how you've been able to rise from since like you are a pupil to where you are right now?
So, as you have mentioned, I was admitted in May 2016. But before that, I had worked at KN Flow LLP. I think all through, when I look at my journey, I think there are some things that have come about that have made it very easy for me to get to where I am. First of all, I was lucky enough to have selected or chosen a path that was very congruent with my skills. So I like to think of myself as a very open-minded legal professional, and my area of practice allows me to exercise that independence of thought, negotiation, and all those skills. The other thing is that I found someone who believed in my skills and entrusted me with more responsibilities over time. And thirdly, I would say I have been very consistent and disciplined in my practice. So, as I mentioned, my working life or my working space in a day is not 8 to 5. So I work until I feel I have delivered what my clients needed to be delivered that day. And that has gotten me working like late into the night, sometimes over the weekends. But as much as people would think that's a bad thing, it actually gives me a lot of joy, because then the few hours that I have to do other things, I do them very peacefully. So in terms of my career progression, I started at CMA as an intern. That was around October 2013. Then I joined KN in February 2014 as I was going to Kenya School of Law. I did that up to December. Then I was given a contract at CMA for 6 months. So part of my pupillage was at CMA for 3 months. And then the other 3 months I went back to KN. I was there until March of this year. I made partner in December last year. And I was lucky enough to get this opportunity still as a partner at MMC in April of this year. So just to sum it up, I think people don't appreciate the role that luck and all those things play, but I think as much as we are hardworking, as much as we find people who believe in our skills, there's a lot more there's a lot more that destiny plays in our progression, and I think I've been a bit lucky. Yeah.
So working till the work is done is what has made you who you are.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to a young lawyer, young advocates? What would you tell them?
I think the first thing I would tell them is first introspect and find who you are. Find what you like and endeavor to find yourself in a space where you're working on things that you like to work on. Of course, as I said, that is not something that most people control. Some are lucky to find themselves in those environments, but you should always yearn to find yourself into a space where you can, where your skills come to play. For instance, you cannot put a monkey and an elephant to compete on climbing a tree. So just find a place where your skills are well employed and they work for you. The second thing is, at any one point, keep adding value to yourself. So from a very young age, when I was in KSL, I was already publishing articles in our business daily on very new issues in the market. At that time, I think real estate investment trusts had just been introduced in Kenya in the capital market sphere. So I did a lot of research, interacted with a lot of people, and came up with a few articles. And as much as these articles don't directly impact on your progression, what you will see is, like when you're in interviews, when you're in public spheres with people who can positively impact in your career, these are kind of the things you're going to discuss. So read more. If there's an area of law that is coming up, make sure you know a lot about it. Like for instance, now we have so much legislation in place that is very new. We have the Data Protection Act. We had some amendments to the Competition Act. There's an amendment to the Insurance Act. So there's a lot more that has come into place, and I think the place of a young lawyer who needs to progress is to keep yourself abreast on upcoming laws, whether at a bill level, in a social setting, be able to discuss these things, and you will find yourself plugging into the right circles. The other is commitment. Be committed to your work. Once you know what you need to do and once you get it, just be committed. Employ your skills and your concentration in what you're doing. Make sure that your client is happy. When there's a discussion, be open-minded. You can learn a lot from even your juniors. So there's a lot more you can learn from almost everybody. Just keep growing and keep listening. And I think that would have a positive impact on the kind of person you become and the decisions you make.
Lastly, are there any challenges you faced in the profession?
Yeah, there's so many challenges, but I think at the top of it is, and I think for most young professionals, they must have encountered this. The legal profession is still inclined to the thought that the older you are, the more you know and the more you can do. So in a meeting, you'll have someone discredit you because you're young. Maybe you're on a call with an international counsel and they throw in their experience and they ask you about yours, and with the obvious outcome that they will want you to cede more in negotiations. So that's the major challenge. But increasingly, as you can see, young lawyers have started infiltrating the leadership. So I can say to the young lawyer, there's a lot more to look forward to. The market is listening. As long as you have the skills and the abilities, then it's now possible. The glass ceiling is being broken day by day. I think that's the major challenge. Everything else, well, keeping yourself abreast while at the same time making sure your work is done. That's a challenge, but you'll always find time if you have something to do and something you want to do.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kariuki, for having us. We wish you all the best in your career.
You're welcome.
God bless you.
Right.